All right, let's talk about something that can feel, well, pretty overwhelming, data migration. But you know what? It doesn't have to be. Today, we're going to break down this whole complex process into a simple, step-by-step adventure. We're talking about moving your most valuable asset, your data, into Microsoft Azure.
And really, it all boils down to this one huge question. I mean, think about it. Your data is everything. It runs your business. It holds all your insights. It's your competitive edge. So how in the world do you get it from point A to point B, from your servers to the cloud without anything breaking? Well, let's find out.
Okay, so first things first. Before we even think about packing up a single byte of data, we have to step back and ask the most important question: why? Because, let me tell you, a successful migration isn't just about the tech. It's a strategic move for your business.
And that's the real key here. The goal isn't just to move files around. No way. It's about unlocking what the cloud can do for you. We're talking about mind-blowing scalability to handle any growth, a massive performance boost for your apps, and the freedom to innovate way faster with all of Azure's incredible services. That's the destination, and that's what makes this whole journey so worthwhile.
So with our why locked in, let's get practical. The very first step is to map out your route. You've got to identify every single piece of data you have and then decide exactly where it's going to live in the Azure ecosystem. It's kind of like giving each of your data assets a brand new, way more powerful address.
And this right here? Think of this as your cheat sheet. It's pretty straightforward. Got a transactional database running your day-to-day operations? You're probably looking at something like Azure SQL. For that enormous analytics warehouse that's crunching mountains of data, Azure Synapse Analytics is an absolute powerhouse. And for all those other files, logs, and unstructured data, a super flexible and cheap option like Azure Blob Storage is the perfect home.
And this is so important. You don't just dump everything into one big digital box. You have to be smart about it, strategically matching what your data does with the service that was literally built for that job. If you get this wrong, you could be looking at slow performance or some nasty, surprising bills. But if you get it right, you optimize for both speed and cost. You make the cloud really work for you.
Okay, so we know our destination. We've figured out where all our data is going to live. But now, how do we actually get it there? The choice here is a lot like deciding how to move house. Are you going to use a fleet of small, fast cars making trips back and forth, or one giant moving truck that does it all in one go?
This is what we call your data migration method. It's really just the technical game plan for the move, and there are two main ways to think about it: online and offline. And trust me, they have very different implications for your business.
And you can see the trade-off right here. An online migration keeps your applications up and running by constantly syncing data in the background. That means almost zero downtime. Now, it's more complex, for sure, but for those systems you absolutely cannot turn off, it's a lifesaver. On the other hand, an offline migration is way simpler. You take the system down, copy everything over, and bring it back up in Azure. It's perfect for less critical stuff or when you can actually schedule some maintenance time. Okay, deep breaths, everyone. We've now reached what is easily the most critical moment of this entire project, the final move. We call it the cutover. This is the big one, the moment you flip the switch and your business officially starts running in the cloud.
Yep, the cutover. It's that one single decisive moment when your new Azure system becomes the real deal. It goes live. And getting this moment right, it is everything. It all comes down to precise planning and, of course, execution.
So here's the thing. A smooth cutover isn't just one step. It's more like a carefully choreographed three-part dance. First, you do one final data sync and switch all your application traffic over to Azure. Second, you immediately start running tests to validate that the data is perfect and the apps are working. And third, you always have a safety net, a rollback plan to switch back to the old system in seconds if anything goes wrong. You've heard that saying, trust but verify, right? Well, it absolutely applies here. This quote says it all. You just can't assume the data made it over perfectly. You have to prove it. Validation isn't just some step in the process. It's the step that actually defines whether you succeeded or not. You run your queries, you check record counts, you test your apps, you make sure everything is exactly as it should be.
So to pull all this together, let's just run through a final checklist. Think of this as your high-level guide, your traveler's companion, to make sure you've covered all the essential bases on your migration journey.
Seriously, this is your blueprint. You assess what you have, you map it to the right home in Azure, you choose your transport method, then you plan, and I mean meticulously plan the cutover with your validation and rollback plans ready.
You test everything with a smaller pilot run, and then, and only then, do you execute the final move and validate that everything arrives safe and sound.
And just like that, your data's journey is complete. But in reality, a whole new adventure is just beginning. The migration itself, that wasn't the end goal. That was the starting line. So the real question, the one I want to leave you with, is this. Now that your data is in one of the most powerful and scalable places on the planet, what new insights, what new innovations, what new adventures is it going to unlock for you?